Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Amin Tani, and this evening I will be presenting to you on the advantages and disadvantages of open source for software business startups like yourselves. So first of all, it's important to understand what is open source software. Basically, open means that you're free to copy, modify, or distribute the software and sell it and all sorts of stuff. Closed basically means that you can't do that, and usually you can only install the software on a single computer. So basically it's the license is what makes a computer open or closed. So open source licenses fall into two main categories, and those are the GPL license and the BSD. The difference between them is basically the GPL requires that any changes you make, you have to provide the source code for those changes. You have to contribute your improvements back to the community. BSD doesn't require you to do this, and you can make a closed source spin-off from an open source project if it's licensed under BSD. So some examples of the more prevalent software titles that are open source are Linux. You may be well familiar with it, or at least have heard of it, and also Android, Google Android. So those of you that have Android phones, you're actually using open source. And for web browsers, you have Firefox, that's open source, as well as Google Chromium, which is what Google Chrome is based off of. And additionally, for office productivity, there is LibreOffice and OpenOffice. And LibreOffice is actually a spin-off from OpenOffice. A group of people got together and decided they could take OpenOffice and improve it. And for image manipulation, you have GIMP, which does just about anything Photoshop will do. And for vector graphics and image creation, you have Inkscape, which could be considered an alternative to Adobe Illustrator. Additionally, other media programs include Audacity for audio editing, and you have VLC for media playback. And VLC is well known for being able to play a large variety of software formats. So you may ask, why do people develop open source? Why do they go through all that work just to give it away for free? Now the answer is that there are a number of key advantages that you get to receive when you develop open source software. The first one is community development. When you're developing an open source program, the number of people that are working on it may be much larger than your little startup. And so that means that a project can progress a lot faster just because there are more people working on it. And additionally, the increased number of people working on a project improves program stability and security because more people are working on it, finding and fixing bugs and security loopholes. And additionally, your time to market and your costs are reduced because there's more people working on a project, so the time is shorter, and you get to build off the shoulders of giants, which is what LibreOffice did with OpenOffice. And plus, you don't have any licensing fees for using open source software, which is a big bonus. So, the disadvantages of open source. These are very important to consider. And the first one is if you decide that you want to develop your software on Linux or a different open source operating system, and you need a program to do a certain thing, you can't go down to the store and buy the title that you need. This is because most of the software at the store is closed source, and so people can't make money selling it at the store. And additionally, open source has a reputation for fragmentation. This means that instead of all the effort going into one project, the effort is divided among many smaller sub-projects. And so, in some ways, this hinders the progress of an open source project. So people could consider Libre and OpenOffice beginning to fragmentation, but probably one of the biggest examples of fragmentation that people look at is Linux itself. There are over 300 different versions of Linux. There's probably much more, but that's about how many you'll find on distrowatch.com. And these logos down here are just some of the more popular ones that you'll find on DistroWatch. And additionally, so if you decide you want to develop using an open source operating system, you can go to the store and look for a computer with that already on it, but you probably won't find it. That's just because not many manufacturers provide computers with Linux already installed. And additionally, when you run into problems and you're using open source, a lot of people will expect to be able to call a phone hotline and get support, or get on a live chat, or to have some official source, some official resources available. However, with open source, this isn't the case because you haven't really bought anything, so there's no way to pay for that and provide for that. You can purchase technical support, but that's another expense that you have to consider in your startups. And you can use community documentation and technical support, but this usually requires more time and technical expertise. And also, along the lines of hardware and computer support, you maybe already have a computer that you just want to install Linux on. You don't need to buy a new one. You could install it and you'll find that everything works, but at the same time you could install it and find that a lot of stuff doesn't work. It could be your graphics card, your sound, or your Wi-Fi, or you could find that your printer or scanner doesn't work. So if you decide to use open source software, it's really important that you make sure that it's going to work with the hardware that you have. And probably one of the bigger concerns that you'll have as software startups is that to open source software, you have to release your source code into the public domain. Well, not the public domain, but you have to release it to the public. And this means that everyone can see your code and approve it, but also your competitors can see your code and approve it. So this is something you have to consider as a startup. And if you choose open source, you have to find a different way to be competitive. And last but not least is you need to find a way to monetize open source. You need to create a viable business model. So a lot of people provide technical support because with open source you don't find free technical support because you bought a piece of software. You got a piece of software for free, and then you have to pay for your support. And additionally, other people provide training or even advertising. That's how Google makes a large portion of its profit and revenue. So in conclusion, open source provides some really compelling advantages. These advantages allow you to reduce your development costs and bring your product to market much sooner, because you can build off of other people's work, you can take advantage of community resources, and you can stand on the shoulders of giants. On the flip side, there are some large obstacles you have to overcome. Namely, you have to release your intellectual property to the public, and you have to find a way to make money off of this. So these are obstacles, but there are many open source businesses, software businesses, that have found a way to do this. They've been able to take open source and make it profitable and overcome these disadvantages. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time to come and listen to me. I hope that this knowledge will benefit you as you make choices and decisions regarding your businesses and how you are going to work with open source software. If you have any questions, feel free to come up to me after this. Thank you very much.